This week on Erotic Awakening, collaring ceremony, cure, and breast torture.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, we recommend you stop listening right now.
We want to thank our latest patron supporters, Jules
and Dee.
Thank
Welcome
you
aboard.
so much.
Indeed. Thanks, and your support keeps us going. So head over to patreon.com/Erotic Awakening today and get your bonus content and support the show.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Dan.
How's your tits?
Well, that's a good opening line. I like that. My tits are healing just fine. Look at this. Look at that.
Yep, that is a significant
Holy cow.
bruising.
This is no way. A week and a half later, isn't it?
That
This
class
is
was
Wednesday,
on a Monday.
And it was on a
Yep.
Monday, but not 2 days ago.
Yep,
So
8
this
days
is a
ago,
week and a half
10/9.
later. So
Yeah.
on my FetLife profile is an original picture with all the reds in there, but this is like yellows and greens and blues, and oh, it's so wonderful.
And we're talking about
Look at
bruising,
that.
not somebody coloring on your tits.
No, this is bruising. This is wonderful. This is from our Naughty and Nice class. Is that what
Yes.
it's called? Naughty and Nice breast torture and titty play is
And
what
we'll-
it should be called.
We'll talk about breast torture a little bit more in just a moment. But first, we did get a question from someone. Actually, we know exactly who this question came from.
We did, which is why we're doing the podcast now, because I was just looking in the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Usually our first podcast of the year is of our best shows from the previous year. And we're going to do a question instead.
We are indeed, and which is funny because we have a lot of changes that happened to us and with us in 2024. We will get into those in a future show, but for today we are going to talk about this. A listener wrote in and said, S and I are talking about doing collaring again and wanting to know the pros and cons of a collaring ceremony and what it actually entails.
Indeed. So we do know a little bit about this. We have had a collaring ceremony before. We have had a second collaring ceremony before. We've done it a couple of times. We used to do it kind of ritualistically each year for like the first 6 years. And we have, or at least you have, I don't think I have performed collaring ceremonies for other people, correct? You facilitated them for other people.
Yep.
So a little bit of experience here. Plus,
As well as collared other people. Not only you, but I've collared other people along my path as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, and you know what? Just a little bit more. When we were writing Hearts and Collars, we stepped back and we revisited what a collaring ceremony is and what it looks like, and we added to that as well. So we've written about collarings as well.
Indeed, from our experience, right?
Absolutely.
So there's all kinds of ways to do this, but pros and cons and what it actually entails.
Yeah, so let's start in the reverse, starting with what it actually entails. And what we're talking about is this idea of a collaring ceremony. So if you're from the BDSM world, you might think of a collar as something that people wear for a particular scene, or even as a fashion accessory. And what we're talking about today is more the idea of a collaring ceremony, a collaring where you are making some kind of a commitment to another person. Normally, it involves some level of a power exchange relationship and some time frame, although some people just skip the whole time frame, assuming that they'll just be together forever.
And even ours was for a year and a day. We didn't know of anyone that had done this before. And I say this all the time, but we didn't have any role models. We were fashioning a relationship from fiction stories, right? And collaring just seemed hot. But we didn't know what we were doing. Oh, you know what, though? At that time, I bet you Castle Realm was around, which is one of the like original websites for power exchange, or at least submission. And there was something that was like something of the roses or roses and thorns.
Yeah.
And I bet you there's some Gorian collaring ceremonies based on that power exchange
Absolutely.
path and things like that. And ours was a little different.
So when we think collaring ceremony, you and I have done it as you mentioned, right? Where you actually have kind of a wedding ceremony vibe to it, where you've got an officiant, not a legal capacity, not necessarily a spiritual guide, but some sort of a officiant.
You know what? When I said before that I have not officiated a
Of course you
collaring,
have.
I am wrong. I officiated. He was the
President
president
of
international in LA.
at the time. Yep.
So I am a wedding officiant. So when you said it's not legal, yeah, for 99% of them they're not legal, but I was a legal wedding officiant
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted it to be a marriage with a collaring.
Yep.
So yes, I've absolutely done that as a commitment ceremony that was a wedding and a collaring.
And in general, that is a great term for these collaring ceremonies. They are indeed a commitment ceremony. You
Absolutely.
are committing to, in now for where wedding commitments are kind of vague, what you're actually committing to. The collaring ceremony is specific in that I am going to exchange power with this person
Mm-hmm.
for, hopefully, you've set a time as well. So, what are the aspects? What do you want to include in that collaring ceremony?
Well, they can be very simple, right? It can just be you and the other person or persons together in a, I would hope, a sacred space of some sort, something that's special to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be long and drawn out, like the one that I officiated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've done some long and drawn out ones as
Yep.
well. You've
Yep.
also done some very simple ones. And it can be as simple as a call and response sort of thing, right? Maybe the submissive kneels and the dominant stands, and I dedicate myself to you. I dedicate myself to you, sort of like a back and forth sort of thing. Or it could be like vows for a wedding,
Mm-hmm.
right? One
Yep.
says their
Yep.
vows, the other says their vows, collar put around the neck. Or it could be elaborate. And the elaborate one that I did involved a bullwhip
Mm-hmm.
person. It involved flower maidens. It involved someone carrying a collar down to the bride and groom. The people with the roses, the flower maidens,
Mm-hmm.
they walked down the aisle first, stood at each line of chairs holding a rose that had been prepped. And then the bullwhip master came through and bullwhipped each rose, and that's how the petals landed on the
Mm-hmm.
aisle for the bride slash submissive in this case
Mm-hmm.
to come down. And I've also facilitated one that had a male slave. Oh, I got to get my shit together. I've actually done this a couple of times, right? So I did one for a male slave and a female dominant. But this one in particular I'm talking about had the bull whips, had a very respected member of the community actually bring the box down that had the jeweled collar in
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was
High
amazing.
leather sort of situation.
Very high leather.
And
Absolutely.
and here's where we get into the problem of, someone says, well, I'm going to have a collaring ceremony. What exactly does it entail? Well, anything you want,
Absolutely.
because they can be as complex and high protocol as what you just described, or they can be something. The last collaring I did was with just me and the person, and we simply shared some words back and forth, and I put the collar on them. And it
Mm-hmm.
was that simple for that one. And it could be anything in between there, right? You've got to create this collaring ceremony to, unlike, and we constantly refer to that these are designer relationships, and they can be designer collaring
Ceremonies? Yeah,
ceremonies, right? What you do want it
absolutely.
to have is and you wrote down these key words that you want to include, right?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons too, because they were asking about the pros and cons of a collaring ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
right? One of the pros is that this is a rite of passage in your relationship. This should not be taken lightly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've gotten to the point where this seems to be very important to celebrate, because it's also a celebration of being at a place to want to do this. And,
Mm-hmm.
and gosh, I guess actually it's two different things. It could be, oh my God, you've done all this work and now let's be collared. So it becomes a celebration, a rite of passage. Or it could be, hey, we're starting this new thing. Let's put a symbol on it so that we know we're starting this new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily a celebration of work done, but a mark of a relationship begun of
Mm-hmm.
a certain style, right? So it could be either one of those things, but it shows the commitment that you have towards it.
Yeah. So these are these key words being
Mm-hmm.
commitment, celebration, rites of passage, and then the fourth one is accountability or accountable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You are making a not a, this commitment leads you into. Well, now you've got to be accountable to follow that commitment. If you are saying, I am a power exchange leader and I take this slave to be my slave, and here's your collar, well, a week later, you can't be sitting on the TV scratching your belly and ignoring your duties as a leader, right? So there's that fourth level, the fourth word being accountable.
Right. And then you can add a fifth word, which is focus.
Hmm.
Because you're being accountable and because you've made this decision and you've done this thing, that can change your focus from the vanilla drift that
Mm-hmm.
gets talked
Yep.
about sometimes, right? It's like, ooh, we made this promise to each other. We have this focus now. We're accountable. And that is absolutely pros. All of these are pros. What would be any cons? Why not do a collaring
Uh,
ceremony?
the only reason, the only con that comes to mind is that if you're doing it in such a way, like let's say you've done it publicly within your little community, and other people have expectations of what that means, and you're not living up to your expectations, I think that's a dumb con, but it's one that might impact you.
Hmm.
If you're ready, if you've stepped back and thought it through and decided you're ready to do this, I don't really see there being a con. You know, it really responsibility. People, it's not a bad word or a good word. It's a
It's a
word that
word.
describes a situation, right? So I don't really tag any of these as a con to doing a collaring ceremony.
Absolutely. So why not do it?
Why not do it? And why and where are you going to do it? You can do it
Ooh,
anywhere you want. You could do it in your home. You could do it at your local dungeon if you talk to the people there.
I just saw one done at Naughty Revival. You could do it at a weekend con.
And you could do it at those at a weekend con, for
Indeed.
example. And if you're going to do it at any of these weekend cons, invite us to watch. For example, Cure in Columbus in January,
Just a few days away. Intrigue in Indy in February.
or Tulsa in June.
Oh, we have a new one we just added.
Did we
It's
now?
official.
Which one?
In March,
Kinky
we'll be in
College,
Kinky
back to
College in
Illinois.
Chicago.
Whoa.
Indeed. So keep up with all our events, book news, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter.
And get your EA shout out like Jeremy.
Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe today.
Speaking of Cure, which you say is like, I was
A
just
few
talking
days
to somebody.
away.
Yeah, it's like 8 from when we're recording, 8 days away.
Yes, so it'll be 7 when I put it out tomorrow.
Yep.
But the reason we bring up Cure again in Columbus, Ohio, January of 2025 is because they only have a few more rooms to sell to make it a hotel takeover.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been to a few hotel takeovers. It is a much different event. This is going to be a fantastic event, even if it doesn't make it to hotel takeover. But if it makes it to hotel takeover, that means it'll be naked swimming in the pool. It'll be chocolate areas, which means nudity will be allowed. Like Naughty Revival, you'll be able to walk to each other's room in your underwear or nothing at all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a whole different flavor when it's a hotel
Yep.
takeover. So if you're going to Cure, get your room in the host hotel if you haven't yet. If you haven't decided on whether to go to Cure or not, now's your chance. They opened up tickets so that they could sell those hotel rooms.
Oh, okay, great.
So that is my understanding. Once those rooms are gone, tickets are closed again.
Yep. And I think last I heard they might even have a volunteer opportunity or two left. That I don't know about for sure.
That's a fantastic idea for us introverts or people that are new that want to get to know people in the community is volunteering. So very, very important for these events to happen and to keep the ticket prices lower than what they could be.
Yep.
Right? So yay.
On our last episode, we were talking about not you had lost our kink list or the
I
fetish
did.
list that we were going
I
through.
deleted it by accident.
No problem. It just so happens that one of our listeners, Jen, sent over a new kink list. Really, I mean, it's like 7 pages of stuff. So
It
we'll be starting to go through that soon.
It really, yeah, it's pretty long. And, I was looking at a couple of shorter lists and things like that, or even this one. And I'm kind of wishing that they had rooms for notes. I'm looking at that. It just struck me. They have things like blindfolds and anal play and things like that. But it's kind of like a, have you done it? Will you do it again? Top, bottom, or switch.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like your options. And I'm like, well, I like blindfolds, but maybe I only like these blindfolds,
Yeah,
not those blindfolds. So it'd be nice to have like notes to add on that. So
absolutely.
it was more discussion points. And they're supposed to be discussion points, right? God, my voice just went really high right then.
The funny thing is, you look at, yeah, I totally agree with you. If like for example, chemical play, I might check yes, but that is a wide range of world of things that it may or may not mean.
Chemical play. Yes to cinnamon oil. No to ginger juice.
Well, we don't know about that.
Our ginger
You
juice
might love
just
ginger
came
juice.
in. I got a feeling I
You
don't
might
have an
love it. You're going to
opportunity
find
to
out soon.
say no.
So, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, Dawn, you and I just taught our breast play, nice and naughty, kind of a breast torture class.
Hmm.
Actually, and it does range actually from gentle play to significant, leaving the bruises you've got on your breast right now.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, we've taught that class a few times before. Normally, we get a lot of demo bottoms. This was an interesting space in that instead of having any demo bottoms, you did all the demo
I
bottoming.
took it all. Poor me. So I had thumpers and coconut rope and single tails and leather paddles and punching and roofing gloves and all the things. My boobies were so happy. They're still happy. They still have sore spots. So yeah, we went to town on those.
And what we did not do, you can do needles and fire and wax. We didn't do any of those, but we sure did everything else.
We did. And you know what was neat about that
Hmm.
is that it was a class for newbies. I mean, there were some experienced people there, but it's on their newbie night. So there was like 30 people there, and many of them, this was so new.
Right.
It's always so neat to see the new people going ooh and ah and
Mm-hmm.
naked boobies. I'm in the right place.
You know what? And what we talked about was where to play. And, for example, people forget about the underside of the breast and the
And
side
the
of the breast.
sides, yeah.
And that if you're going to do something to a breast, that's very different from what you want to do to an areola and what you want to do to a nipple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just even if you're just thinking about, a slapper, just you can slap the areola, you can slap a nipple, but you need to recognize that the level of impact has to be greatly reduced because those are more sensitive areas.
Indeed. But I like that we pulled the coconut rope out and that could be what this abrasion is from.
Mm-hmm.
The
Oh yeah.
coconut rope. We did two different things with coconut rope. So
Abrasion play is something people don't think about a lot when they think about nipples, and again, that's different people for different taste. But using coconut rope, for example, for abrasion.
mhm.
Do you remember somebody recommended a particular thing that they like to use on their nipples after abrasion play? And I cannot. Oh, I feel like it's.
Alcohol.
Nope. That would be a sadistic thing. No, actually, it's the same thing that you used for treating tattoos.
Tattoos?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that cool liquid
That
stuff that we've
cool.
bought
I
a number of
know. And
times
I
when we've
bet
had
you it's
tattoos.
in the
Is it
medicine
aqua
cabinet.
pumping?
Something like that.
Yes, aqua pumping. If you are a podcast listener who knows what the hell we're trying to remember, feel free to contact us and let us know, and we'll give you a nice shout out for that.
Indeed, indeed. So, yeah, just a couple more random things. And yes, I wanted to put out there that I've also started doing guided meditations. I mentioned this on the last show that along with the Zoom classes that I'm doing each month, I've added in guided meditations. And I think that's because I'm getting so much into my hypno practice and stuff that this is a way that I can share some trancy stuff without it actually being hypnosis. And I've facilitated guided meditations for like 20 some years at this point. I love doing it. I find it very beneficial. So I did 2 in December. And I was going to do 2 in January, but I'm actually going to do 3. And the first one is going to be free for everybody. So
Awesome.
the day that this comes out, it's going to be that night. But I've already advertised it on FetLife.
Okay.
But over the weekend or next week, I'm also going to put the recorded version of it out on our store. So it'll be for free out on the store, and I'll have more information coming out about that. And then also on our store, I'm up to having, because Gumroad dumped us because of adult content, I am now up to 18 of our recorded classes up on the store. So last time I said 10, now it's 18. So we will see how many more we can get on there. Super excited about that.
And an awesome bargain at
It is.
$5 a piece.
So the guided meditations are $5 a piece. The classes right now, the recorded classes are $7 a piece. If you are a patron, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end of this as well, but if you're a patron, there's all kinds of discounts and free classes, and even a $5 patron right now is getting about $25 worth of classes and meditations each month. So yay. What a bargain.
What a bargain
Haven't
indeed.
said that
Wow,
for
haven't said
years.
that for years. I noticed that after we talked recently on the podcast about hoo cows, and Trevor put a couple hoo cow pictures up there. I don't think we've mentioned those
Discord
yet on our Discord.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really like the Enigma, this tentacle coming out of the book thing.
Yep, I saw that one. And then on our Instagram, we've also, and Sam Wall is always sending me pictures, and the pirate. So those are pretty cool. And then Barrick sent me more fapping porn. What are you watching? What do you see?
Somebody sent us a jizz jar, which is something that I guess you could buy people for gifts. I don't know.
Jizz jar.
Yeah, Minotaur sent us the jizz jar. And wow.
Just some good art.
Yeah, absolutely. And some neat art out there as well.
So our Not Safe for Work Discord channel, that is for our patrons. But we've also got channels that non-patrons can get to. There's plenty of stuff out there. And we have a great group of people. It's not overloaded, so you're not like getting messages every 3 minutes like some Discord channels. It's really good information. And there's actually a question on the Question of the Day channel that I want to make sure that it's about rewards, that I want to make sure it gets on one of the next 2 shows.
Yeah.
There's really good conversation back and forth between our listeners that are on the Discord channel. So, indeed, lots of tentacles, no food on boobs. I need to get some people together. If anybody's in Yuma and wants to do a food on boobs shoot, there's nobody in Yuma. We haven't come across anybody. Maybe I need to go to Phoenix and, I can go to Phoenix and we can have a little photo shoot of food on boobs and surprise you. That would be a surprise.
That would be fantastic.
Now that I've said that out loud, that would be a surprise, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. So you ready to wrap this up?
I am. And you might be ready to wrap this up. But before you do that, you can support the podcast by heading over to rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Where in the hell are you at?
Jumped all the way down to the bottom of that page there.
Oh, gosh. Join the conversation with us and other listeners. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our growing Discord channel.
You can support us on Patreon and get early access to the version of the podcast, to a ad-free version of the podcast, a free version of the audiobook Polyamory Toolkit, free ebooks, discounts on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord access, and
find all the goodies at patreon.com/eroticawakening today.
Reach out to us whenever you want to.
Contact us with questions, podcast comments, or just to say hi.
We're on FetLife as Dan and Dawn.
And Erotic Awakening on Instagram.
Or use good old email. You can find us as Dan and Dawn at eroticawakening.com.
The music is done now. Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dawn.